Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome to the show Jeff Dorson. He's the Executive Director of the Humane Society of Louisiana, also known as Humane Society LA, I guess, is how Marilyn Litt said it when I was just talking with her last week. We discussed the situation down in Louisiana after Hurricane Laura came through as a Category 4 hurricane and really devastated the area. And Jeff's here today to talk about what's going on down there. The area is still under mandatory evacuation orders, and on top of coordinating multiple disaster relief efforts, delivering supplies, transporting animals to safety, the Humane Society works with their staff, sponsors, volunteers, and other no-kill partners in other areas of the country to make life-saving transports of these displaced pets. After situations like Hurricane Laura, they work incredibly long hours under less than ideal conditions, and the staff and their partners have successfully moved hundreds, if not thousands, of animals out of harm's way before and after Hurricane Laura made landfall. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Patty, it's a pleasure. Thanks. That's quite a nice introduction. I keep forgetting what we did. It's all a blur.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It sounded terrible when we were talking with Marilyn. It sounds like you're going through a really, really rough time. And so we're glad to be able to talk with you and see if we can, get some help for you from some of the listeners, if you need donations or whatever. So why don't you tell us what the situation is and explain to us, what we could possibly do to help you.
Thank you. You can always visit our website, humanela.org, always a donation button there. You can go to our Facebook page. We give virtually daily updates of what's happening. But let's go back to Katrina, because that was the first large incident that affected everybody. But since then, we've had multiple natural disasters and even man-made that's really affecting not only Louisiana, but the rest of the country. And Louisiana was at one time thought to be a model for a proper response from the state. It gets very complicated very quickly, but back in 2006, we actually passed legislation, or at least regulations, that on paper look very good and promising under the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, Office of Emergency Preparedness. That's a mouthful. Mm-hmm. But if you go under the pet regs, they are ultimately responsible for a lot of things, coordinating individuals getting the help they need, coordinating humane societies, animal control agencies, and then they created something called LSART, Louisiana State Animal Response Team, which again, on paper and in theory, is exactly what we need. A group of professionals willing and able and skilled to go in to handle these emergencies. However, it's been its own disaster. And I say that because I've been analyzing what's gone wrong ever since Katrina. And from my perspective, Katrina was a huge success because we reached an enormous amount of people through the sheer goodwill of people coming to our state to help us. But since then, we've now appointed this quasi-governmental agency to handle really a special need that needs a huge army. So now we have a small bureaucracy that we feel is not very passionate about it and doesn't do a very good job about it. They come in, close the borders to rescuers. They tell people that they don't need help, go home. Their tagline is, "We have it handled." Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing is ever handled during one of these incidences, and you need everybody's help. Now, it could be, of course, you want it structured. You don't want mayhem in the middle, but how they're handling it is nothing what we want. And we're going to address this. I'm sorry to be so critical, but this is our perspective as a humane community. It's not going well.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. So how have you been able to help, considering that they're not allowing others in to really increase the manpower, I guess?
Exactly. They scale it way down, and that is exactly the wrong approach. Actually, to me, everything's wrong. Communications are cut. They don't share information with those who want it, like humane societies. They've created a strange adversarial relationship with humane societies. Now, how is that the right approach? That's like telling, the Salvation Army you're not needed. That,
Right.
It's all fine and dandy. Go home. And they're rude and belligerent to the very people willing to forsake their vacation time, travel on their own expense in adverse conditions, simply knocking on the door, asking to be let in to help, and they're told to go away. How is that the right approach?
Right. Now, why do you think that's happening? I mean, what could be the purpose for that?
A couple things is they are concerned with the loss of people's pets. That's fine, but that could be addressed by having a shelter in place. Here's what's missing from this equation: a quick response. What we're seeing is LSTART goes in, and sorry it gets slightly confusing. To go into a disaster, if you're an agency, you have to have an MOU by the local government. And an MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. It's a key component to all of this because they want the power to rest with the local authorities, which I'm fine with. What I'm not fine with is a lot of these local authorities don't even have MOUs, so they don't bother to invite people in. And the guidelines actually demand that they have MOUs in place. So here's what happens. An incident is about to happen. They should have their MOUs already ready. In other words, their partners, their rescue partners on standby. Those if you can follow the path of a hurricane or whatever, the tornado, you should be in place about 60 miles away already a day or two before the incident, ready to move on day 2 once the flooding is stopped. LSTART goes in on day 4 or 5. We see this time and time again. Well, what happens during those 4 or 5 days? The animals suffer and die.
Right.
So it's backwards. And it's untenable and it's not working well, and the public needs to know. So it's up to us to start telling the people what we're seeing from our perspective. So
they're not even allowing their own humane society to help? Is that what you're telling us?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. They will invite in maybe a national group like the ASPCA, but there's another flip side to that. This is a huge moneymaker for national groups.
Right.
They want their pictures with the wet puppy in their arms because that generates enormous goodwill and money for their membership. So these big groups are always vying for these MOUs. Yeah, it's complicated, and the public doesn't understand, and it's complicated for us. It took us a long time to figure out why is HSUS and ASPCA always rushing to these disaster sites and can't wait with their film crews. Answer: because it's a fundraising platform.
Right. Yeah, Marilyn made a point because I asked her how can people help, and she said to go to your webpage to help directly and not to go to the big guys because you don't know. It's like if people really checked into some of the bigger charities, you don't they do not give 100% of the money. They don't do that. So who knows, where your donation, what portion of it is going to end up in the hands of the pets or people that are helping the pets locally. Yeah, so that's a really important thing to get across to people. And, I totally get it with, the whole money making thing, because that's exactly what they do. They put up those commercials, they make people think that they're the ones doing all the work, and it doesn't sound like they're doing their job.
No, and they send in a skeletal crew. You need a massive amount. Now, here's a caveat. Alley Cat Allies are the good guys in this. They are forever asking us what we need day 2, day 1, and sending us resources. So they're, in my opinion, doing exactly what should be doing. Good partnership, good asset allocation, sharing revenue. When they bring in money, they share it. These other guys, man, I'm telling you, wringing pennies out of them is impossible. So they'll send in a little tiny crew, in my opinion, 4 or 5, maybe 6 people, for an area that's hundreds of, it may be more, but it sure seems small. So it's never scaled up to what it should be. Right. It always seems like they don't want to spend the money on staffing, or everything's just this endless bureaucracy and this endless response called "we can't."
Right.
And so that's not how we operate, and that's not how most, grassroots groups operate. Their motto is "yes, we can, whatever it takes."
Right. Right. So
that's what's lacking: passion and will. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So who basically is the one that chooses them? Is it the governor? Is it your mayor? Who is that?
The local animal control agency, actually. So Calcasieu Parish Animal Control actually is sitting in the catbird seat. They can tell the parish administration, we choose X to come in as our partner. They chose the American SPCA. Well, have they been nice to anybody? Not from what I've heard. They've asked everybody to go home.
Wow.
They left notices on rescuers' windshields of their car. It's best that you leave. We have it handled.
So it sounds like it sounds like you guys need some local TV coverage, although you have no electricity to to spread the word. But
no, we do.
Oh,
I'm in New Orleans, so there is coverage. But it's funny, Patty, you mentioned that. Very little, almost no national news on animal recovery efforts, and very little local. We don't know why that is, and we've been pitching story after story.
Yeah, I talked with Marilyn about that as well, because I was trying to find some stories, because just yesterday somebody on my Facebook asked, had anybody heard anything about Louisiana? Sorry, we're having a big storm. If you're hearing that crashing in the background,
sure.
We're having a big storm here. And I was like, no. And I'm going to be doing an interview on it tomorrow. So it was odd to me, that we're not hearing this. But the same thing is true to me about the California fires. I'm not seeing anything about animals that are in need of help. Now what is going on? Because I know all the local small rescues would be doing whatever they can to help, but they're not getting the coverage they need. They're not getting they're just not getting it. That's just so wrong.
Yeah, wow. And I don't know. Media loves animal stories.
Yeah, they do.
But I don't know what happened. I mean, Katrina was full of animal stories, but every year there's fewer and fewer of them, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, and it's a tough time with the pandemic and all that situation as well,
sure,
because so many people. Yeah, exactly. So why don't we talk real quick about that, and how can people help Louisiana or your parish or whoever needs it the most down there? What can they do if they're listening and they want to help?
Go online and just type in small Louisiana. So we like the small groups. We know that they're going to put their money where it belongs. So we like La Paw Animal Rescue. They're in Sulphur, right in the heart of it. La Paw Animal Rescue. We like Lake Charles Pit Bull Rescue. So those two you can count on. We like the Humane Society of West Louisiana in DeRidder. They got hit. We had to send them 2 generators. So if you want to expend your resources wisely, pick small grassroots groups. Ours, we spend money wisely, low overhead, low